Yo, what up, YouTube? So today I have for you the top 30 WikiLeaks leaks of all time. Now, I could sit here and explain why the leaks are important and all the leaks have done to really move and change politics and society, but I'm not even going to go through all that because the leaks speak for themselves. So I'm going to let all the leaks do the talking. So without further ado, 30 best leaks from WikiLeaks. Let's hit it. All right, so the first leak from WikiLeaks actually came in 2006. You can see on each slide, I'm going to put the year the leak came out on the bottom right. But the first ever leak Julian Assange came out with was about the Somalian government. Really, this generated a lot of buzz, not so much because people cared about the Somalian government or anything, or the Somalian people, but more because whoa, there's this crazy non-profit media outlet that's dedicated towards leaking confidential information about the government. So people were like super hyped on WikiLeaks. Basically, what the leak said was that the Somalian like political leaders were calling for assassinations of government officials. But I do want to add in there that Julian Assange later said the leak could have came from the United States government trying to like sow discord in Somalia. So as far as all the leaks I've seen, this seems to be the one leak that Julian Assange could never really confirm the source, and he isn't really sure that this leak is authenticated. But be sure every other leak I'm about to mention, he is confident that this is a credible leak, but the only one he really had a question about was this first leak about the Somalian government and their corruption and how they were calling to assassinate government officials. So the next leak here is Guantanamo Bay. So WikiLeaks released old documents from 2003, so this leak came out in 2007, so that means these documents have been around for 4 years, so people clearly knew what was going on here at Guantanamo Bay. Also, this is like one of the first of multiple leaks about Guantanamo Bay. And Guantanamo Bay, the place where the United States tortures people openly, and even Barack Obama, when he runs on ending torture, can't seem to close Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay is actually a huge punching bag for WikiLeaks. These documents in 2007 show that Guantanamo Bay officials were denying Red Cross access to certain prisoners, which that does violate international law, including the Geneva Conventions. And these documents showed that they had children as young as 15 in the terrorist prison. So they were counting like people who were under 18 as being like hardcore terrorists. And we knew about this, and these were classified because these documents apparently are like threatening to the security of the United States. So really glad they leaked these about Guantanamo Bay. We'll see a little bit more about Guantanamo Bay in a little bit. The next leak is about Chinese censorship. So WikiLeaks published dozens of videos about civil unrest in Tibet. Tibet and China have a real altercation about territory. Is Tibet an autonomous land? Is it part of China? Are they independent? So people in Tibet were having like protests and civil unrest, and there were a bunch of videos about it that China was censoring, so nobody could watch them. So part of what WikiLeaks does is if you're a government that's censoring stuff, most likely WikiLeaks is going to go after it and publish it. And that's what they did here. So WikiLeaks published, I think, about a dozen videos of civil unrest in Tibet that were being censored by the government in China. Another really powerful leak that I think a lot of people don't know about is the Scientology leaks from 2008. I think now it is common knowledge, sort of, to kind of say that Scientology is this like corrupt, cult-like religion that does a lot of bad things. And I think that's common knowledge now, but it really was not common knowledge in 2008 when these leaks first came out. This was like a huge dump of documents showing how Scientology, how they recruit their people, how they indoctrinate people, how they trick people, how they raise a ton of money, how they silence people, how they do all this corrupt stuff. And no one really knew about this. And Wikileaks was on the cutting edge of the Scientology debunking, stance that has taken place today. Another leak that I think a lot of people forget about is another leak in 2008 of Sarah Palin. And the reason this one's really important is because this was like smack dab in the middle of an election where she was the VP for John McCain. These leaks showed that she was using a private email address to conduct state business. So this is kind of similar to what Hillary Clinton was doing. Hillary Clinton was using a private server, where this seems to be that something similar, but Sarah Palin was using a private email address. And oftentimes in politics, when you don't use a public email address, but you use a private email address, it's because there's something that you have to hide. And so therefore you can't use these emails on a public email address. You have to email people in private. So they leaked private emails of Sarah Palin in the middle of this election. And this really kind of set the course that I think Sarah Palin has really fallen off since this point, and Julian Assange and Wikileaks really got this going. The next one is about Kenya, and I think this kind of shows that no government is safe. No matter where you are on the globe, if you are being corrupt, Wikileaks will find you. This was just leaks showing the Kenyan government was ordering killings of individuals who dissent from the government, and they were using the police as an arm of the government to carry out killings and disappearances. So this one was extremely important, and this one also came out in 2008. These few years here, 2008, 2009, 2010, are the formative years of Wikileaks, where they really build themselves up. The next one is about the British National Party. So this one's really interesting, actually. If you don't know, the British National Party is a neo-Nazi party in the United Kingdom. And I do want to point out that, you got people like Vosh, you got certain people that call everything a neo-Nazi party, like anything that's conservative or right-wing is often cast as a neo-Nazi party. So I do want to ensure you that this isn't just calling a bunch of right-wingers neo-Nazis. This is like equivalent to like the KKK. So yes, these are neo-Nazis. I wouldn't sit here and call them that if they weren't. And so basically what was happening was Wikileaks published a list of memberships where they showed that prominent doctors, military members, police officers, people in UK civil service were members of the British National Party. And the reason this is important is because UK civil service workers are banned from joining the British National Party. So Wikileaks released this list of memberships, and we saw all these names of UK civil service workers being a part of the neo-Nazi party in the UK. And this was in 2008. The next one was the Congressional Research Service of the United States. Wikileaks leaked reports because this is basically a think tank for Congress. And this think tank conducts a ton of research, and they're actually exempt from the Freedom of Information Act. So they can conduct reports, they can publish the ones they want to, and they can hide the ones they don't want to. And in America, there is a Freedom of Information Act that allows any citizen to inquire the government to produce documents. And the Congressional Research Service did not have to produce documents of studies they were citing. So all Wikileaks did was publish the reports that the Congressional Research Service was refusing to publish. So that's extremely important because you'll see as we go through this that Wikileaks really attacks the Freedom of Information type acts that are in other countries. And if there's certain organizations that are trying to skirt around these things, Wikileaks does do a good job of publishing this information for people. The next one I want to talk about is Norm Coleman. So there was a senator from Minnesota who was running, and he said he was saying that all his donations were coming from people of Minnesota. So what WikiLeaks did was released a list of donors showing this guy was lying, that his donations were coming from out of state. And most likely what these are coming from special interests, because why would someone in Tennessee care about the senator in Minnesota? It's usually not a working class person who's sending money to a senator in Minnesota. Most of the time, these come from special interests. So that's what WikiLeaks was showing here. And he was showing that Norm Coleman back in 2009 was lying. And I'm pretty sure he's not in our government anymore. So thank you, WikiLeaks. The next one I really want to talk about here is the Climate Research Center leak. So he leaked documents from the Climate Research Center, and this was also something that was trying to skirt freedom of information type things. So what WikiLeaks did was they put out a ton of documents that actually showed that the climate change scientists were joking about manipulating the climate data in a way to show climate change is more serious than it actually is. So this actually angered a lot of people on the left, because they use this to people use this to kind of say, see, climate change isn't real. The scientists who talk about climate change are trying to trick you. And so this leak was very controversial. But I did see a video of Julian Assange clarifying it. And he said that, listen, first off, someone risked their life to leak this information, or someone risked like prison time to leak this information. So A, if it's credible and it's real, he had a obligation to share this information. He had an obligation to the source who risked themselves. So as long as it's true, and the thing is, Julian Assange just wanted us to come from a place of truth. So if anyone's trying to manipulate any data, that should be serious, and we should take that seriously. Even if it's in the name of proving that climate change is really serious, data should never be manipulated. So this one, I'm actually grateful for leaks like these. You should never only leak something to try and prove one certain point. And let's just go from the truth. And the leaks were not anything about saying climate change isn't real. It's just showing how certain scientists can be. It's just the truth. So I thought this is a very good leak, but it's very controversial at the same time. The next one is Barclays, and this one is not controversial at all. This is a giant bank in the UK and a giant financial institution, even more than just a bank. Even the Brooklyn Nets basketball team, their arena is called Barclays Arena. So this is a very large financial institution. And basically what they were doing was they were advising their clients to commit tax fraud. So I know like in college, like I had to take a few tax classes, and you're supposed to do whatever you can do to lower the amount of taxes you're paying. But the thing is, Barclays was convincing their clients not just to lower it to the lowest possible legal level, but they were actually advising their clients to do illegal things and illegally report things and illegally state the value of things in order to pay less tax than you legally should be allowed. So they were advising clients to commit tax fraud. And this was just going on. I'm sure all these institutions is just one giant party until WikiLeaks actually comes out with this stuff. And you know, big outlets it's rare they just go after like big institutions like this. So it just shows WikiLeaks is the only one out there really slaying the dragons out there. This is 2009. This is right after the major financial real estate crisis in 2008. So this is a very important leak. Another one, this was a giant leak in 2009. So this was the worldwide internet censorship leak. So This was a gigantic amount of documents that proved in multiple countries. I'm talking a ton of countries, including the U.S., UK, China, and a ton of other countries I couldn't even list on here, was showing how these countries individually censor their internet. And not only do they censor the internet, but it showed how they censor it, why they censor it, and all the mechanisms behind it. So this was a giant leak that just showed when you go on the internet, you are not getting 100% uncensored truth. You are always getting a little bit of what the government wants you to see. So these leaks were in 2009. This is in an earlier stage of the internet. Right now, the internet is so much hotter, I think, than it was in 2009. So again, this was a huge leak that they had. Another one that really caught my eyes, I know there's a certain group of people that really love this leak. It's about Bilderberg Group. So Bilderberg Group is kind of just one of those secret frat societies where all these billionaires and millionaires and prominent members of society meet. And all these Illuminati, I guess people love looking into this type of stuff, but WikiLeaks leaked a bunch of private meetings of the Bilderberg Group. So I guess when they meet, these are very secretive meetings, and people think this is just a giant cabal of insiders. And so this is a group of members in the UK. By the way, the UK is the country that's currently extraditing Julian Assange. So you'll see how many leaks are directly at prominent people in the UK who's currently extraditing him. So this was just a really fascinating leak. And I think these types of leaks are the reason why he is going to be extradited to America for sure. Okay, so another leak in 2009 was the Peru oil scandal. So, there were a lot of suspicions that contracts in Peru were not given to the most efficient companies that could do the job you wanted them to do. But actually, and you might find this hard to believe, it was all just a bunch of corrupt oil lobbyists making backroom deals with the government, and the government would just pay them all the taxpayer money they could give them. So what WikiLeaks did was they released telephone recordings of lobbyists, oil lobbyists in Peru, making backroom deals with government officials. And this really confirmed a lot of the suspicions that were already held in Peru. So these were very major leaks in Peru. And again, it just shows the international nature of WikiLeaks and how nobody is safe from WikiLeaks. Yeah, this is another report. So this is actually, it's called the Minton Report. And this is a leak about a multinational commodity trader called, I believe it's called Trafigura. And so this is a mining group in Africa. And so Trafigura basically just uses Africa as its own personal garbage can. And what they were doing was illegally dumping toxic waste off the coast of Africa. So WikiLeaks published this report just showing that they're just dumping a ton of toxic waste off the African coast. And I guess because it's Africa, you can just do whatever you want there. And as long as your profits are for the making, then who really cares about dumping, tons of toxic waste off the coast? So I think anyone knows that what they were doing was wrong. And this was a really great leak. And so it would be sad to see Julian have to do 175 years in prison, knowing he was coming out with stuff like this that was just helpful to pretty much anyone who enjoys planet Earth. So the next one was about a Icelandic bank. So you'll notice WikiLeaks goes after the financial industry like crazy, but these leaks just showed that the owners of the bank and the people running the bank and the major stockholders were openly stealing money through an accounting ruse where the revenues, and they would somehow change the classifications of things, and they would collect a ton of money on it. And this is just standard practice for financial institutions across the world. So again, 2009 banking crisis just happened, and here's owners of a bank just taking money for themselves. So glad that Wikileaks is the only one out there risking anything to publish this, because this is in the public interest to know about these kinds of things. And so I'm glad they did that. So the next one, this one's actually hilarious. This is, they published the U.S. Intelligence Report. And notice we're now in 2010 now. And this report was a report about WikiLeaks and whistleblowers. And it was a report about how to combat whistleblowers. So this is just hilarious that they make a report on how to take down WikiLeaks, and then WikiLeaks leaks that report. And basically the report shows how, one of their strategies was going to be that they were going to give WikiLeaks fake information to publish so that they can then turn around and ruin the credibility of WikiLeaks, saying, hey, they publish fake stuff, so sometimes it's real, sometimes it's fake. You really can never know what's real or fake. So WikiLeaks published this report, and it completely exposed their plan. And I think this is a major reason why they really haven't been able to take down WikiLeaks, because we know about their whole plan to take down WikiLeaks. So this is just great. This is one of my favorite leaks. And so now in 2010, this is the infamous Baghdad airstrike video that comes out. So this is the leak that Chelsea Manning leaked to him that he's currently being prosecuted for. This leak just showed like a U.S. helicopter just indiscriminately firing on citizens and laughing at it, and they even killed 2 Reuters journalists. So this was pretty much a war crime that was exposed by Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. So it's really just sad to see that he exposes a war crime and he goes to jail, not the people actually doing the war crime. So you can see now also that WikiLeaks, this is just a gigantic leak. This is really incriminating. Anyone who had any thought that the Iraq war might have been legitimate, I mean, this just kind of crushes it. And this is a huge blow to the military-industrial complex in the United States. And this probably sealed his fate, that they were going to one day go after him, and he was going to one day, and they were going to get him. And I think this really, all the other stuff was child's play, but this is where he crossed the line. And this is really where I believe he sealed his fate. Yeah, and so the next leak is just as big, about the second major war going on in America. This is the Afghan War Diaries. So he leaked documents showing that there were so many civilian casualties just not being accounted for, or they were being treated as enemy combatants when you just killed civilians. And so it just showed, like, we are not over there fighting a bunch of Taliban or terrorists. Like, the line between a guy grabbing a gun to defend his own farm and his own land and a terrorist grabbing a gun to kill an infidel, the line between those two people is so gray. And so pretty much any Afghani person who didn't want the United States to be there and invade the country was treated as a terrorist. And I think because I do think the Afghan war for some reason gets a little bit more legitimacy than the Iraq war when it totally shouldn't. And this kind of was in 2010, and this was another big major chord. Like, if you thought there was any legitimacy to this war, the Afghan War Diaries did a huge number on that. And again, this leak, along with the previous leak, along with actually the next couple leaks, these are the leaks that get Julian Assange in trouble, and he's not able to recover from this. And I think he gets arrested like around this time, because I know he spent like 8 years in jail. So he might have gotten arrested in like 2011 or 2012. So that's like right shortly after this. So next he comes out with the Iraq war log. So that's more stuff about the Iraq war. And this was just showing that they were sending prisoners to be tortured. Again, just like in Afghanistan, this showing a crazy amount of civilian casualties that aren't being accounted for. And if you ever heard of the Abu Ghraib prisoner abuse incident, this was just leaks about, they were taking these, I don't even want to get too graphic, but they were doing extremely graphic mutilation, messed up things to prisoners that I'm pretty sure it's not okay to do. It's against all kind of international law, and you can't, and it's just messed up to torture people, especially in the way that they're torturing them. Just having, well, I don't even want to get into it because that's not the point. The point is this exposes the military industrial complex, how corrupt they are, and how just disgusting they are, and how they're willing to treat other human beings. So this was a huge leak, and people still talk about the Abu Ghraib prisoner abuse, and no one would if it wasn't for WikiLeaks. So thank God for them, right? So the next one is the U.S. State Department cables. Now, this is his first, but not last, leak really attacking Hillary Clinton. So he got a hold of some State Department cables that showed that Hillary Clinton ordered diplomats to spy on French, Chinese, British, and Russian delegations at the UN Security Council. Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State at this time for the Obama administration. And as we know now, she was gearing up for a presidential run in 2016. She was really gearing up for that run ever since 2008. And this just shows that she's just a sleazy politician. She's willing to spy on people. She's willing to use the intelligence apparatus to her disposal. And these are the first leaks exposing Hillary Clinton, and they're not the last. So here's some more in 2011 about more Guantanamo Bay. And these are actually called the Guantanamo Bay Files. And this shows that they were holding innocent Afghani and Pakistani citizens without charge. So they're suspending what's called habeas corpus, which I believe is something that was written into the Magna Carta. So this was like hundreds of years before the Constitution of the United States. They, in England, created the Magna Carta, which had something called habeas corpus. So the government can't just arrest you and hold you without saying what you did wrong. They have to charge you with something because you can't defend yourself if there's no charge to you. So they're just holding innocent people, and it was showing they had someone as old as 89-year-old man in Guantanamo Bay, as well as a 14-year-old boy. So it also shows that the original leaks that came out in 2008 showing they had young children here in Guantanamo Bay never stopped anyone from still keeping young children in Guantanamo Bay. So these leaks are extremely important because no one is listening to the previous leaks. No one's changing how anything was done in the previous leaks. And Barack Obama, he ran on closing down Guantanamo Bay. It's an executive decision. All he would have to do is snap his fingers and he can get rid of Guantanamo Bay, and he doesn't do that. So we need more of these leaks, and I'm glad that Guantanamo Bay is a huge punching bag for WikiLeaks, because it should be. And these leaks overall showed that we are not only really holding militant combatants there, we are just holding regular people in a terrorist camp. So this is not right. This is wrong. And I'm glad they showed this. And no one in American media has any courage to be able to publish something like this that WikiLeaks did. So the next one is the Australian bribery scandal. And so something you need to keep in mind, this was in 2014 now, so I am skipping ahead. Julian Assange did get arrested, so he is, I believe, in the Ecuadorian embassy at this point in the UK. So you'll see that WikiLeaks does kind of slow up in the amount of leaks that they're releasing. But also another thing to notice here is that this is about the Australian government, and Julian Assange is an Australian citizen. So now he's even going after his home country here. And he released something really important, that there was a gag issued by the Supreme Court of Victoria, which is the Australian Supreme Court. It's called the Supreme Court of Victoria. And basically, this was a gag order that forbid the press from reporting on a major bribery scandal that took place. So you'll see gag orders, anything that's suppressing truth and suppressing information and suppressing something that the people do have a right to know. WikiLeaks will be there and they will publish it. And that's what they did here. And they really screwed over the Australian government here. This is why he doesn't have any chance to be saved by like his home country to somehow fight for him, or to somehow say, hey, this is one of our citizens, you can't just extradite him and, you know, basically sentence him to a death wish in America. But the reason they don't stick up for him, and even without this, they wouldn't have stuck up for this, but of course, here, this just shows clearly that there was a huge bribery scandal and the government there suppresses that. So that's really dark. That really shows that all these countries are kind of ruled by a ruling class, and that citizens don't have a right to know anything that compromises that ruling class. So again, here we go. WikiLeaks is the only one capable of publishing this kind of stuff. So this is very important. The next one are the Sony archives. And this one is actually, I think, more well known to people who just don't follow politics. If you remember, that movie was coming out, The Interview with Seth Rogen and James Franco. And this was a movie, it was a plot. It was about a plot to assassinate Kim Jong-un. It was going to be really funny. But these leaks showed that Sony was working directly with the military-industrial complex in releasing these, in making this video. And the point of the video was to, I guess, show the evil of Kim Jong-un and how, you know, it was basically somewhat of a propaganda video just to get everyone to really hate Kim Jong-un. And of course, I think we all do hate Kim Jong-un, but the thing was, Kim Jong-un, once he saw these leaks and people in the world saw these leaks, it was now dangerous for Sony to release this video. So they didn't put it in theaters, but you can watch it online. Like, it is a movie you can watch. I think I've even seen parts of it. It is pretty funny. It's by like the same people that make Pineapple Express. But I think if anything, this just shows that Sony was working with the military-industrial complex to make this video. And people do have a problem with that, because I think in Hollywood in general, they do have a tendency to do a lot of movies where opposing countries are the enemy and America's job is to take them down and infiltrate the government and conduct a regime change war and overthrow everything and save the people there. That's often the narrative in American films, and this really just shows this is not some kind of movie film creator who had this idea about Kim Jong-un. This was the military-industrial complex wanting to make a movie about North Korea. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't make movies. That's kind of like Hitler made movies about Titanic and about all these kind of stuff to show, oh, hate England, hate America. It's a common tactic. It's been used since film was a thing in the 1930s by Germany, that they use film as propaganda film. So it's not okay. If a film creator has an idea to create a film, that's one thing, but a film really shouldn't be made by the military-industrial complex. And this came out in 2015. Barack Obama was president at the time, keep in mind. The next one was, again, the UK. This is about the nuclear weapon system. And this leak showed serious issues related to the weapon system in the UK, and especially related to security issues. So again, this is just Julian Assange beating up on the UK. Their nuclear weapon system are unsafe. And I think it's just showing that, look, what's the point of all these countries having like tons and tons and tons of nukes all over the world? And by the way, they're not as secure as people would like to think they are. So again, this is 2015, and this was a major leak at the time, especially because WikiLeaks was being slowed down here. WikiLeaks was being shut up a lot easier at this point. So this just was also showing they keep going, and there's nothing that's really going to stop them from publishing things that are again, this is in the public interest. Why would this be classified? Why can't we know about that? We do know about that now, and I think it's only for the better. So again, this is just a great leak that really changed some things. Another big leak from 2015. So now they're really running hot again in 2015. They released some Saudi diplomatic cables. So this just shows that the Saudi government is funding terrorist groups, including, but not limited to, Al-Qaeda, and of course all these other groups. They're funding them. They're urging the U.S. to attack Iran. So it's just showing that the Cold War going on. Saudi Arabia is very aggressive against Iran, and other things. It just shows that Saudi Arabia's oil production is completely controlled by the United States. So I think those three things put together just give us a huge picture. They really paint a picture for us of how the Saudi Arabian government is such a bad faith actor. They're so bad for the world right now. And we should not be siding with them in this kind of Cold War between them and Iran. We should not be picking Sunnis over Shia when I really don't think it matters. So these cables, if anyone had some kind of vision that Saudi Arabia was some kind of good country, that they're one of the good ones that we should be aligned with, this really does a lot to show that, hey, no, it's not. Another leak. So now it's 2016, and now WikiLeaks is just roaring again. This is when they leaked the DNC email leaks from the Democratic National Committee. And this just showed, so these were leaks that showed that Hillary Clinton and the DNC was basically behaving as an arm of the Clinton campaign. And they were basically taking contributions to the Democratic Party as contributions to Hillary Clinton. And these leaks were so serious that the chairperson, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the chairperson of the DNC at the time, had to resign in the wake of the leaks because it was so embarrassing. The thing that the DNC is supposed to be doing here is they're supposed to be holding the primary election and letting people decide who they want to be the Democratic nominee. But what the DNC was actually doing was they had chosen the Democratic nominee to be Hillary Clinton, and everything they did up through the primary was the goal of getting Clinton elected as the Democratic nominee. And this is when I think a lot of the love for Bernie Sanders really took off. These leaks have really, I think, reverberated through the political community. We wouldn't know that the DNC was acting in this way. Of course, we could surmise that they were, but it's really comforting to me knowing that, of course, they were working against Bernie Sanders and for Hillary Clinton. And we have the proof. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz had to resign. So I think her resignation is the stamp of approval that this was messed up, what they were doing. This goes against democracy in the United States. And so this was a huge leak at the time. And by the way, they're not done with Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party. Because as you can see very shortly, I might have the chronology here mixed up, but I believe it was the DNC emails and then the Podesta emails that came out. These emails, so these were Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta. he had emails showing that large sums of money from Wall Street, that Hillary Clinton was taking large sums of money from Wall Street in exchange for speeches. So remember at all the debates that Bernie Sanders was talking about Hillary Clinton taking money from Goldman Sachs? This was the leak he's talking about. This is how we know she was taking a ton of money from Wall Street. And we wouldn't know this without WikiLeaks. We wouldn't know this without John Podesta's emails. So again, 1-2 punch, DNC leaks, Podesta email leaks, shows unequivocally that Hillary isn't doing the right thing, and they're not really part of democracy. Hillary Clinton's goal here is to take money from Wall Street and not serve in the interest of the people. And I think we have a right to know this. This shouldn't be secret. We as a people have a right to know where she's getting her money from, because we need to know how she's going to act if she ever becomes a politician in America. So it's important to know where they get the money from, because that is what leads you to know how they're going to govern. And then again in 2016, another whopping leak here were the Yemen Files. And this was like over 5,000 documents leaked from the United States Embassy in Yemen. I believe it was in the capital of Yemen. And so this just kind of shows that the United States was totally part of drumming up civil war in Yemen. They were funding, training, and arming forces in Yemen. There are what you call Houthi rebels who were taking over in Yemen, and the United States, because of their imperialist nature, because they can never stand another country having leaders who are opposed to them, and because Yemen, if you can see on the little map here, Yemen is right next to Saudi Arabia. So Saudi Arabia controls how the United States are going to function in the geopolitical kind of landscape. So I think put all that together, and you can easily see the United States is trying to drum up and start a war in Yemen that continues to this day. So this leak came from 2016 when Barack Obama's president. And what have we done since then? We just continue to sell bombs to Saudi Arabia, to bomb Yemen, and to cause a humanitarian disaster in Yemen. And I think maybe besides for Libya, like this is one of the most, there's civilians just dying. They're not allowed to get food there. They're not allowed to get medicine there. So these were one of the first leaks kind of waking people up. And I think a lot of people on the left now accept that what's going on in Yemen is not right. And part of this was these leaks, because the talk about Yemen wasn't nearly as popular back in 2016 as it is now. You really got to thank WikiLeaks for that. And so the 30th leak here, this is the last leak. I know WikiLeaks has so many leaks, it would have been impossible for me to put all the leaks on here. So if anyone does know another good leak that they've had, drop it on down in the comments. We would definitely like to know about it. But this is actually my favorite leak of all time from WikiLeaks. This was a series of leaks throughout 2019, basically. And these just show multiple dissenting reports from the OPCW. So basically what happened was everyone said Bashar al-Assad, used chemical weapons on his own people. And they sent in a team to investigate this. And out of all the chemical attacks that ever happened, this was the one that we ever actually really sent in a team to really do a hardcore investigation. After they did an investigation, this is 2018, they came out with a report that said, yes, Bashar al-Assad did gas his own people, continue to bomb this country, continue to imperialize this country, continue to take down the leader in this country, because, yes, he is chemically abusing his own citizens. And basically this leak, a year later, shows that, no, the report from the researchers showed that this was not a chemical attack from President Assad on his citizens. It uses multiple things such as toxicologists, engineers, and other experts to prove that this was not the case. The original report says that there was chlorine present, which was what Assad used allegedly to attack his own citizens. But they never found more than trace quantities of chlorine. And the word trace quantities was omitted from the official report that was submitted. Also, they used math and engineering science to prove that the container of chlorine that was being dropped on the roof of this building would have fallen through the roof, but rather the story we're told is that they drop a cylinder filled with chlorine on a building, and it smashes on the roof, and all the chlorine goes everywhere, and the chlorine kills and injures all these people. But what a mathematical engineering report that was actually confirmed by Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT. MIT had research even confirming the math and engineering report that totally this cylinder would have fallen through the roof. So every eyewitness statement, by the way, statements from not really Syrians, statements from Jaish al-Assad, which is the Warriors of Islam. The Warriors of Islam say that a helicopter came in and dropped this container. So what we know by the math report is that the container was placed on the roof, not dropped from a helicopter. So every eyewitness statement was proven wrong here. The toxicology reports were bunk here. And these leaks, for me, 100% show you that this report was a lie and that Assad did not use chemical weapons against his own citizen. This is detailed. This doesn't just show one aspect of it, but this debunks 360 degrees the whole entire thing. And for me at the time, I didn't know for sure what to believe. And this really proved to me I don't have these questions anymore. What's going on in Syria? For me, these leaks were the most important leaks that Wikileaks ever came out with, because these show you for sure that, as usual, the military-industrial complex is lying about this war, and that the media is refusing to cover it in the United States. So that is the last leak. Thank you all for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe for more Julian Assange content. Thank you.